Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Jaime Fuego here.
And we are here to do our very first Trilogy review. So this is basically coming from the fact that there was a third movie in a trilogy that came out in recent months. Turns out that we had not reviewed any of the original two movies, although they were worth talking about. And so instead of doing three separate videos, because we're trying to clean stuff up before we get to our relaunch in either April or May, whenever it happens, as a result, we're going to combine all three movie reviews into one movie review, this one. And what we're talking about, if you didn't see by the title, is Skyline 1 through 3, which includes Skyline, Beyond Skyline, and Skylines.
Yeah, get that
Skyline
3 into the title.
Just like Fan 4 Stick.
Yeah.
So that's
clever.
what we're here to talk about. Now, let's first off, we'll do our overall, but at the same time we do our overall, let's do our history with it, okay? So historically, I did seek out the very first Skyline when it came out into theaters all those years ago. It was starring Donald Faison off of Scrubs, who I'm a big fan of, as well as the white guy whose name I don't know that well, that was also in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot, as well as Haven, which Fuego would know once he gets around to it for his Hail to Stephen King
It's been sitting,
segment.
yeah, it's been sitting in the production list for a long, particular amount of time. And was he there all 4 seasons? Did you watch
The whole
it?
time. The whole time.
Okay, so he is a character I would imagine wasn't
Indeed. He's a pivotal
a
character.
Colorado Kid book. But.
So we are talking about Skyline 1, 2, and 3, starting off with the first movie, which is basically a group of friends hanging out in their apartment having a party when that night, after they've passed out, aliens descend upon Earth and start sucking up humans in mass quantities.
And in one specific variety, which I found so awesome about this, what they were going for in particular.
So
Yeah.
specifically, there are Sentry aliens sent out from the motherships. At first, there's big mothership suck-ups where they just take all the loose humans populating the streets and out there accessible that get brought into the light, right? The cool thing they set up is these aliens' light, if you look into it, then your eyes, this blackness starts to crackle and envelop your face, which means you've been taken over and you just zombie-like walk into the light, which is where they suck you up
Tractor
and
beam.
use you for fuel. Literally, that's what's one of the things that's so cool about this series, is that it is so finite and definite as to what happens to humans. They are literally sucked up, killed, and used for fuel to continue conquering the planet. And so that's part of what I really liked about this as the movie unfolded.
PG-13 movie, too.
PG-13 movie, but it's these, so this group of kids had this party in this apartment, and aliens descend, and they realize, pretty quickly what happens if you look into the light. So they're trying to keep themselves out of it, and then they have to try and escape from the apartment. But when they try and do so, giant alien sentries are, patrolling the world, and they're huge, and they'll smash a car with no problem at all. So it's just this group of people trying to survive what is essentially the alien apocalypse as it happens. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this movie when it came out, and I have not ceased to enjoy this movie whenever I've put it on.
Yeah, the first one I did not watch when it first came out, because of the fact that...
That's what's so interesting about this to me.
Yeah, man, because I have such a just adoration for Independence Day, and I got some vibes from that too, but
Sure.
I think around the same time of this, like, Battlefield Los Angeles came out.
Yes, this was right before that.
Yeah, and I got these two movies confused in the fact that I was so much more wanting R-rated, alien-related stuff at the time. When I saw the rating of PG-13, I disregarded it, and I did not watch it upon initial release, and waited years and years and years until Skylines, the third film, was about to come out, and you were like, dude, you never watched the original Skyline. What is wrong with you? check it out, and I recommend it.
As a creature movie fan, because
Yeah.
again, this is the kind of alien movie that creature movie fans can really dig it. This is the kind of alien movie that kaiju fans
And
can
for
really dig, because there's giant alien creatures walking around the city in this shit.
Yeah, and the performances, I think there was the blonde Sweet Valley High girl was in this as well as
Okay.
like the
I don't remember the other actors that much beyond the main two.
Yeah, because there's there's the two couples, and then there's also the Hispanic homie that they encounter who's still there. So that's another thing as far as just overall impressions. I don't know how deep we're
We're not
going
to get that deep, so
three of these
talk
films.
about what you want to talk about.
Yeah, man. I enjoyed the fact that they spent the money on the special effects, because for the time, the special effects looked way better than I was expecting.
Well, that's what we need to talk about.
Not in every scene, but the fact that they kept them in this
in
this sequestered area.
Two guys made this entire
apartment.
movie.
That's
all the
pretty
special
incredible.
effects.
That's pretty
two
incredible,
guys.
man.
And that continued. I know their team grew from movie to movie.
Yeah, because
but
they
it was
brought in
two
a
guys.
Different director for 2 and 3.
It was
but they
two
still
guys that did
produced.
all the effects for for that first movie, and then most of the other 2 movies as well.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I think is a benefit of the movie. There's such a cohesive vision because it's just 2 dudes working on the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they got the ragdoll physics, they got the cool... Like, that's the first time that in cinema history they really focused on the fact, even with Independence Day, the ships came and they blew up entire cities, but we've never seen mass abductions where it's just city blocks full of people and the camera's sweeping in and you just see people flying up going, ah, as they're getting sucked up into the alien ship. And by the end of this movie, you see what happens to them. Most of them get their fucking brains sucked out.
Which was the main point, that in a PG-13 movie, I was so shocked, because when you saw the skull ripping in the more, like, smaller personal interactions, which is what the film does so good, you know, it has that contrast of, like, the big, massive scale destruction, but they saved a lot of money by having the predominance of their actual on-screen cast in this apartment building in LA. And so, I mean, like, one set, primarily horror, we talk all the time that you can save so much goddamn money, man, and then invest whatever else you have for, you know, budget and, you know, promotion on, you know, just making it look in those really just pimped out scenes of carnage as best as possible.
Well, then you get this ending, which to a lot of people seemed really cheesy.
I can kind of feel
seemed
it.
very cheesy.
Yeah.
You get to the end and it's like, oh, you know, a human, spoilers guys, a human is like brought in, and like all the brains that they suck out are put into alien sentries that are then sent out to help them conquer the world. But in a couple of cases, those sentries don't fully take. And so the guy from the first movie that has his brain put in a sentry is now, you know, revolting against the alien race. That's kind of how the first movie ends. And that leads us to Beyond Skyline. Okay, Beyond Skyline starring Frank Grillo. And the interesting thing about this movie is it rewound time.
Yes.
It goes back and it tells that same alien invasion story, but from the perspective of Frank Grillo and anyone that he's around as it happens. So people stuck in the subway as the aliens descend, and then little creatures pop out off of the big creatures and start, you know, attacking, and then like all of them trying to escape while the big lumbering aliens are walking around stomping on things.
Almost some Cloverfield vibes.
Yeah, very Cloverfield vibes.
Yeah,
and then he, for whatever reason, you know, for not for whatever reason, but for plot reasons,
With his son.
ends up going on to the alien ship and trying to do the same thing and trying to rescue his son, who is himself trying to rescue someone else, and it just becomes a big budget alien rescue mission that dovetails nicely into the first movie without being beholden to it.
Yeah.
So I like this. It felt like they increased not just the budget, but the actual scale of the movie and what they were able to show.
Scale for sure. I don't know if the special effects looked as good in this one to me.
Okay.
To be fair, this one actually
Felt a little more video gamey.
A little more video gamey, and also I felt like it was more. Okay, scale of location, sure, and the fact that they travel to Thailand or South America.
Yeah, something.
God damn, I'm trying to remember. But yes, they go abroad in this regard, and so the fact that they did such a drastic change of that visibility was one thing, but I felt like we got less of like the big monsters in that one. I felt this one was more story and character driven, especially with Frank Grillo's stuff with his son. And also the fact that we get this girl who was like kind of half alien-y and
who
plays a big part in this third film.
One. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she ages rapidly, and so then we get more into that later on. But yeah, it was definitely it embodied its R rating as far as a few of the kills, as far as the fact they're dropping F-bombs. Now the last one was very much PG-13 that pushed the R-rated bits of violence, whereas this one they were just like, yeah, sure, why the hell not? Especially Grillo, and he drops that F-bomb so great, man. And
but this felt way more ground. This felt like closer to Cloverfield than the first movie did, in that it was ground level when all of the aliens attack, and all of the people around Frank Grillo are like being taken and destroyed and all this stuff. And so it felt way more investing a la Cloverfield than the first movie did, because it was just them already in their apartment complex, their apartment building.
I think
this just felt way more visceral and way more, this is what the laymen were dealing with. So that's what I was getting at. Is the nice thing is this movie largely takes place parallel to the first movie.
Oh yeah, it's like a 1.5, or something of that nature.
Goes back and tells a different story that happens during the same period of time that the first movie happens in.
Yeah,
and does a great job with it, no less.
Yeah, less escalated, like you said, and not in like a very just constrained period. I mean, they're in public places in Beyond Skyline. They're like trying to go down escalators. They're in the streets in front of a LA and police precinct. So yeah, you see a little bit more of the scale of the carnage, but it's more, as I said, it's less of the big monster destruction like in the first one. It's more of the personal, just how everybody is coping with it. And even when some of those characters get killed, the buddy of Frank Grillo's, who I don't want to say who that buddy is, but you will see it. He has a pretty gnarly death, and it's still with a smaller version of one of the the alien, because they have various forms of size and whatnot. But when the film gets into the final confrontation in this other country, and there's a guy who gets like his limbs chopped off, and there's some interesting bits because he shows up in the third movie.
Which was a big surprise.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
It's just like,
he's
back.
From the Raid, Redemption in the Raid too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't like the finale of this one with the medical doctor trying to analyze this girl who was aging so rapidly, who was this half alien, and some of the other stuff that they did. But I mean, I found because Grillo does so much action choreography and fighting and shit like that. I thought he's great. I mean, he is. Whether it's those Purge movies I saw him in, I haven't seen him in much else besides that and these. I think you've probably seen him in a few more.
Couple of other,
bits.
I mean, he's good when you see him, but he needs to do more personally.
Sometimes I think he does. But in action sequences, he's solid, and he made this movie fun. But dare I say, I know you prefer Beyond. I like the first one, honestly. The world building of the initial aspect, despite how much more shrunken it is.
That's fair.
In some aspects.
And then the end of 2, again, spoilers, basically leads to them saying, we need to take the fight to them. So they're tired of being on the defensive when the aliens are coming to Earth, so now they've decided to go and seek out the home world of these aliens to wipe them out of the universe in order to not have to worry about them going forward.
Yep.
That's where the second one ends. And it is also ultimately where the third one picks up.
A little bit of a time
years
jump.
later,
Tiny bit.
jump, because it turns out that the final battle that they're gearing up for at the end of the second movie, like, let's kick some ass, and then cut to black. It turns out they're like, let's kick some ass, and she's like, no, let's turn tail and run. Yeah. So like, there's a little bit of an add-on to that story,
which she causes a major accident with a lot of lost lives because of her last minute just. And
lack
that's
of
probably
confidence.
or her little bit of the fact that there's still some of
Talking
that,
about Skylines
yes,
now.
Skylines,
guys, the third
yes,
movie
with a 3 in, I think,
instead of the E.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but she has this like last minute, momentary lapse of reason or whatever.
A
or maybe
momentary lapse of reason.
That's what I was going for. Yeah, but she causes a lot of carnage, and she's basically on the run from like the major, Earth authorities. We assume it's like a international government that does everything at this particular point.
But
in some
she's
ways.
being aided by the alien.
by that doctor.
But also
The one who's helping out.
the son, Frank Grillo's son, alien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's because there's actually
There's no Frank Grillo in the third movie,
yeah.
but his son character that becomes an alien by the end of the second movie is continuing on into the third movie.
And this is where it felt so much like District 9 to me. Because
Yes.
of this movie is my least favorite in the trilogy because I felt like it borrowed from everything from District 9 to Alien to so many different things.
I agree.
And
It's not that it was bad.
Troopers,
it was just the least unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And so District 9 wise, there are a bunch of those. And so after that battle was lost in Beyond Skyline, there was still a lot of those cybernetic alien looking things left over
On Earth.
Yeah, and so on Earth, and so they were detached from their main system, and so
we were trying to come up with a way
bring
to
them back into society.
To counteract their programming via some big signal that would show them all and reprogram them to work for our side the way a couple of their soldiers had been done in the second movie.
Yeah, and the reassimilation was seemingly working for a while, but then some of them started to act up, and that was what added the imperative nature to just getting our asses back after failing previously, with the big, crash out mission and whatever, trying to actually make our way back there and stop this new signal that is seemingly making them all rage and rebel and kill once again after we thought it was over. So.
And not only that, but now we're following that girl who was supposedly raised by Frank Grillo because the entire second movie he's protecting a baby. And eventually she gets pulled away from him. But in this movie, she keeps talking about how there was a man that took care of her that she never knew. And so it leaves off on a cliffhanger that basically says, we're going to go find Dad. So Skylines is definitely an end to a trilogy, but it also definitely sets up further movies. And I will say that it is... They tried to take the fight to the actual race on their planet, and it just... I feel like they should have gotten more either budget or backing or something, because it just didn't feel as epic of an ending as it needed to. It just felt like... It felt like, honestly, episode 4 in a multi-episode TV series that's actually just being done as movies instead.
I still contend that I feel like the scale...
Episode 3, sorry.
The scale of these ships and these creatures and everything that went below, they went like this with the first one to about this with the second one, and then this to the third one. It was so much more of that... I mean, even the fact that you could... The scale of reducing and the talking, like the actual interaction, especially in that big battle at the end where there was actual communication with the leader sort of thing in that fight, and... I did not like the way the brother-sister dynamic was done in the dialogue.
It was so half-assed.
It was really stupid and just silly and whatnot. Also, any Deep Space Nine fans, shout out to producer Dave. Dr. Bashir is what you're not sure his intentions are as this leader of the mission. Is he good? Is he bad? You find out eventually. And it was the most predictable of all the entries in the series to me. It felt the most uninspired of the entries, and so for that reason, I wonder... It was also R-rated, once again, but they still did bleep out some F words and just, spelled them out when there's robots talking. The F and, blocking out the U or whatever. So, I don't know. Maybe this one they were trying to get back to a PG-13, and they didn't, but I would watch another one. I would watch another one. I would not hesitate, but the third one I felt like was my least favorite, at least in the trilogy.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think it was the least unique of the three.
Totally.
And I think it was the most questionable in its decision making for the characters. So, but it has not completely spoiled me on this series as a whole. Like you said, I would give another one a try, but they need to step up their game at this point.
I still like the effects. I mean, it was like smaller creatures and, robotic instances and whatever. And when they were going through those black trenches, which was where I really was getting the Starship Troopers vibes and stuff, once they landed on the home planet of these aliens, I didn't like that stuff as much as I was expecting to. So, still, I know the talent behind this core, and so just to, triple down at this particular point, I would definitely watch another one, but a little disappointing in this regard.
So, overall, though, as a trilogy, Fuego, do you think it's worth people's time?
Watch at least the worst two.
The first two.
The first two.
You said the worst two.
I didn't say worst two.
So it looked like it.
I just flubbed it.
Fair enough.
Watch the first and the second film. Watch Skyline and Beyond Skyline, and then in that regard, if you're still invested enough, I think 3 is almost like the. Well, I can't even say Alien 3 because I prefer the second one to the first one, but nonetheless, it's another one of those situations where if you really enjoy the mythology that these series of films have put together, you're probably going to want to know where it goes. Mm-hmm. So at least give that a chance.
Yeah, I would say so too. Give them a try. The first and second movie for sure. If you like them enough, then watch the third. But the third, go into it knowing that it's the weakest.
Yes.
But it might end up being a bridge to number 4. So it might be worth your time after all. Nonetheless, I think that's pretty much as we can say. I mean, well, let's just say the effects.
And then they did make Resurrection.
They did have a small, team for the effects, but it only improved, and it does feel like a big budget movie, but they had small budget for the effects. So it's impressive that way to me.
Yeah, this entire trilogy is an independently produced series of movies that found their distribution afterwards, and it's fared a lot better in the international market, which I can't say I'm that shocked about, especially with some of the casting choices in the second and third film. Mm-hmm. It's still it's a massive just I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, landmark, and just a bit of just doing things from a small standpoint that kind of in a lot of ways rivals what you would see from these big nasty huge studios. So
sure,
I flubbed over that enough. Why not?
It's okay. It's fair. All right, so why don't you guys let us know in the comments down below, what do you think of these Skyline movies? If you've seen them, if you've seen any of them, if you've seen all of them, let us know any and all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're interested, click the like button and subscribe. Also, check the Patreon, which is the more direct way you can support the channel, and also request movies for us to review, do commentaries for, all that good stuff. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias, Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.